Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Antler Up Podcast. I'm joined by the legend himself. I got Larry McCoy on from Respect the Game TV show and online production. Also, he's the marketing and media director for the outdoor group. So that's companies such as Elite Archery, we got Ultra Arrows, we got Slick Trick, and so on and so on. So, Larry, it's a great pleasure to have you on the show. Someone I respect, someone I look up to. So, thanks, man, for taking the time to do this.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been like I said, it's been a long. We've been trying to get this scheduled for a while, and between my lack of computer skills and just schedules, it's we finally connected. So thanks again for having me on. I truly appreciate you asking me to come on, and always happy to get on here and talk some hunting and pretty much anything about the outdoors.
Awesome, Larry. I appreciate it. So, like, let's do this. You had a long heck of a season. I'm sure part two now of next year's already rolling, getting ready for spring and doing along those lines for some turkey hunts. And you're traveling, probably shooting some things for some target archery stuff going on with the Elite. So right now, are you feeling a little like you getting energized again? Of like, man, turkey season's right around the corner for certain states. Are you getting amped up right now?
Yeah, I never quit getting amped up, to be honest with you. It's just I love it so much. It's just from behind the lens and front of the lens, out hunting and doing that. I just love it all. Getting to talk to other outdoor enthusiasts and learning from them and as well. I mean, really kind of segued a true passion for everything outdoors and just whether it be 3D archery, target archery, all the way into the hunting side and even the filming side.
Yeah. I like that. So here's one question that I have for you because we talked about a week and a half ago on the phone for just briefly, and you mentioned going out to the Iowa Deer Classic, and I've worked and have gone to the Pennsylvania Harrisburg Outdoor Show for since I was a little kid. Always did that, and I would love to one day make it out to Iowa for that one. And you mentioned that you had a little seminar out there. What seminar did you do that you were asked to give?
So actually, the seminars that I did out there was over deer decoy setup and stuff. If you follow Respect the Game, the show, and any of our social media at all, you know that I've kind of got a little passion for hunting over a deer decoy. Whether it works and whether it doesn't, it's just something about it. I feel like it's adds another element to the hunt. And there's been a lot of times where it's worked great, and there's been other times
Mhm.
where it hadn't. And through the times I hadn't, I try to take, what went wrong, out, and I started to notice some, more and more positive encounters with deer and the decoy, all the way down to the way it's set up based upon the terrain and the area you're hunting. So uh, they called and asked me to do some seminars on that, and totally pleased. Had a really good turnout, and love to do those seminars just because it gives me an opportunity too to talk to other people. They ask questions, and I get to ask questions to them as well, and learn from them, whether they've tried it and had success, or what's holding them back from trying it. Which there's usually two things: one, I don't want to pack all that stuff in, or two, I'm afraid of blowing my hunt. And
Right.
so we address all that stuff through the seminar, and we had a really good turnout and seemed to get a lot of positive response for it. So I was really happy. And Iowa's that Deer Classics a show that I look forward to every year because there's such a good turnout. You get to see some giant deer walking through,
Yep.
people coming in, bringing their racks in to get them scored, and just it's just really a good event.
I'll tell you what, the one video that you guys had this past fall with the decoying stuff, oh my gosh, where that buck came in and just trashed that one, man, it
Hmm.
just, some of the footage was just so freaking cool and just remarkable to see and just so neat to just when you are able to slow it down and you see the muscles in the buck and oh man, it's just that was a really cool video you did.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, because that was another part of that seminar. We actually used a piece of that hunt as an example of kind of being versatile, and there was no place based upon the wind to set up. So we literally just dug into a little cedar tree out in the middle of a pasture and set it up, and having that deer it work out, the deer work like he did, was definitely a blessing. But it was, we just kind of put ourselves in that position, and the just by being versatile, because the stand was 200 yards and we were going in there to hunt, and realized real quick that, oh man, this isn't going to work out at all. And we, so we just made a decision, moved, and it worked out. And I mean, it was a really good deer, and I ended up not shooting the deer. One, because kind of where we were at, they really practiced some quality deer management. But I could tell you anywhere else, I probably would have been sending one. It was tough, but I was staying entertained, so I really wasn't thinking about it whenever he was coming in, because it was just so fun to watch.
Yep.
How
No
they
doubt.
respond, how they react, and so it's those encounters like that. And like I said, a positive encounter, you hear me say that a lot with a decoy. It may be a young buck coming into the decoy, and that's, to me, that's a positive encounter. Like I said, I love it all, whether it's a young deer and I learn from how they act and how they respond to the decoy, how they respond to my calling, in relationship to the decoy being there. And so that one right there was just one that you couldn't think of, unfolding better in your head, just like it was like.
When it comes to decoying, just because I've never really had the opportunity to do it, what is, are all decoys the same, or man, you got to have a good one? Because obviously the same thing goes for in the turkey woods, right? Like you have some of those, man, you got some really nice ones that are pricey. Is the same goes for a whitetail?
Yeah, I mean, it's always better to have, kind of one that's going to look the part, to say. But I have seen I've done it over just a 3D target and it worked, and I've seen it not. But I mean, I use the DSD decoys. And yes, they are a lot more pricey, but I've also seen the results from it as well. The setting decoys up is probably one of the most vital. How you're going to set up is probably one of the most important things. There's a couple things to keep in mind if you're going to try decoy hunting. One is making sure that you have visibility. The deer have to see it from a little bit, just so they can get comfortable and size the decoy up. Two is you have to create space all the way around the decoy. And what I mean by that is that may be the decoy has to be set up at 30 yards or whatever, and sometimes it may be set up at 15. But create the space around and make sure they can see it, because if they come over the hill and they just see a decoy, now you just put them on edge. Now they've got to come down from that to get comfortable again, versus just getting more and more comfortable as they're working towards a decoy, realizing that there's space all the way around. And then two, a lot of people, the old wise tale when it comes to any decoys, you've got to put them facing you, because they're always going to go their head. Well, I mentioned a lot of my I'm not going to say failures, but times whenever the decoys didn't work out. I had that, and I started noticing that the ones that were coming in, they were circling around, number one, getting their wind right so they can use everything to their advantage. And two, they were going to the butt side of the decoy. Because you got to think, deer are usually, you got about 2 to 3 days of every season where a buck's attitude is going to be to the point where I don't want to tolerate any other buck.
Yep.
And you got to know that going into it. Having a show, one of the hardest parts is because we're going to show some of those more successful times, like the one that smashed him and so on, not the ones that are just kind of tiptoeing up to it, just to kind of stick their nose out and smell it. So, and most of the time they come to the head. So I usually put the decoy kind of quartered, a little bit away, vice versa, either this way or this way. Two, because it opens up more shot opportunity for the deer to be broadside. And because if they come to the back or decide to come to the head, if you do have a real aggressive one, you're going to get a broadside shot at some point. If you have them directly facing you or broadside, a lot of times I've shot myself in the foot, because now the decoy is in between me and the deer. And I've got to try to either shoot over the decoy or around the decoy if they try to come in to get to that, to either go to the butt of the decoy or the head, versus having to circle around and come in between you and the decoy to present a shot.
Yeah, there's a science, man. And like you said, the more you do it is just the more experience you're going to get doing and seeing. And like you said, not necessarily failures, but just times where you're just like, man, that one, it cost me that one just because the way you had them set up. And I mean, too, the more times I guess you even practice doing it with turkey and along those lines, it's just going to help you understand that even better in the whitetail woods as well.
For sure. And when they get it fixed on the decoy, they're doing everything they can to get the wind to their advantage, because they're going up there to look for a fight in a lot of cases, or
Mm-hmm.
check to see what deer this is on my property. And so having having everything in your favor is definitely key, or doing the best you can. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the decoy. You don't have to be sitting right on the X where all these trails come together. And I know a lot of your listeners may really resonate with them, because I've did this several times and made the wrong choice by doing this. So if you have a set and you've got your shooting lane, I've got one wide shooting lane that's there, but I'm on the X. This is where the deer always come through.
Right.
This is it. It'd be a great spot to decoy. You're naturally going to put that decoy right in the middle of your shooting lane. And most of the time, if you see deer, a lot of times they're going to stop short of that decoy. And most generally, they're going to stop outside of your shooting lane, and then they're going to decide and walk to one side or the other, and you just hooped yourself. So if you set it on, try to predict, and it's your best educated guess on which way the deer are going to come from, set it on the side of that, so that way when they stop to look at the decoy, they're in your shooting lane. And once I start thinking like that, you may not be able to see the decoy as well, but as long as the deer can, it may benefit you, because
Mm-hmm.
they may stop in your lane versus outside of your lane and come. Because me making that mistake several times, I'm like, oh man, this is a good deer coming, good deer, and he stops around the edge, no shot, and you're sitting there, okay, he's going to come, and then he turns around and tries to skirt, and then crosses way up there, and you don't have a shot.
Right.
And it's like, man, so just thinking about those little things. And I always say in a lot of other podcasts and other seminars, is knowing your property and knowing will help you when it comes to hunting a decoy or hunting in general. And not only just paying attention to the details, but paying attention to the details of the details.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, if you're setting up in a tree because you've killed deer there, back in the past, because you've hunted this piece of property for 25 years, and you killed this deer, you've killed 15 deer out of this set over the last 25 years. Well, something may change through your property. An oak tree may have fell on the fence where they used to cross, and now it changed. So now their travel patterns may be a little bit different than what it was the year before. And I've seen it so many times that if I'm sitting on a food source and I see deer they're coming out on the far corner of the field, and I look, it's like, all right, well, they're coming out over there. Well, I go back there. Guess what? They're doing the same thing. And then I go back there doing the same thing. Well, first thing you want to do is, what's the wind doing? Are the deer going to do the same thing with a different wind? And how is that wind going to affect where you're setting? Or if the wind's going to stay the same, I'm going to either continue to sit there and watch deer,
Right.
or I'm going to move in and try to make something happen. Because you don't know if that oak tree fell on a fence or fell over the trail or whatever the case may be. All I know is, if you know more about the property around you and going in there, it's going to make you a better hunter of that property. You're going to learn how the deer navigate your property. It's no different if you know that the property around you, you've got 100 acres of corn and 200 acres of beans on both sides of you. I'm not sure that you really want to plant corn or beans on your property if you're going to plant a food plot.
Right.
You may want to go to Nebraska, something with a variety, because now you can actually create the hub where the deer wants to be, so he can stage up before he goes out to that major food source.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Man, that's all good details, dude. Oh my gosh. Well, and that's the aspect of I might have to be in touch with you, because this year, for the upcoming year, I'll be coming up north to New York. Me and three of our other buddies, we finally got a piece of ground up there that we are going to be hunting and spending some time in and checking things out. And we have another neighboring piece where it is a little bit of ag to it, which we're kind of excited about. And I might be in touch about some decoying stuff and just seeing how a good of a property this was set up with. And man, we're pumped to try that. And I just love anytime I have a guest on, or just like you said, talking to people that are just passionate, love talking about hunting. When someone is so involved and so into a specific topic, and that's why I was like, I know pretty much nothing about decoying, let alone decoying whitetail. That's why I was like, I gotta ask Larry about this,
Yep.
because I'm so intrigued, because man, some of those videos are just so awesome to see. And like you said, I know I've heard the stories of where people are like, oh, I don't decoy because like you said, I don't want it to mess up my hunt, or things along those lines. And there is a science to it, right? Like we evolve. And that was like, we'll get into that. And that's the one aspect too, because of how successful you've been for over the years. I wanted to ask like how we have evolved, as for where we're at right now, with hunting and along those lines, and where we're going with it. But man, I really like some of those tips, because you could even use that to, heck, when you got real deer. I mean, I just watched a video this morning with it's not whitetail, but it's regarding turkey, where Zach Fernbaugh from the Hunting Public, he killed his turkey, and the hen brought the was a real life decoy, brought the tom into the shooting lane by, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just naturally. And I heard Zach goes, can I take that shot? What do you think? And he's like, just wait, just if he gets in that opening. Next thing you know it, he gobbled right in that opening and left the head out. Boom,
Mm-hmm.
Zach blasted him. So it's just like,
Yep.
let nature obviously do its own decoying. But sometimes, man, you get those stubborn bucks, like you said. Who is this guy that's on my property right now? I got to go check this out. And you're doing yourself a nice little favor. And if you set it up right, man, you just had a lot of success, I'm sure.
Well, the thing too is reading the animals, whether it's a turkey or a deer,
Mm-hmm.
and that is something you can learn when you're driving down the road or going to a park. A lot of times, I'll just stop when I've got time. I'll stop and just watch them, see
Mm-hmm.
how, and pay attention to the little things, the details of the details. When another deer comes in across the field, when they look up at them, whenever another deer approaches them, or how are they working? Is one deer kind of leading? Is all the deer feeding the same direction in the field? And then taking some of that knowledge that you think when you're just going and sightseeing and looking at deer, whether it be on public ground or a reserve or whatever, it's still you can still imply a lot of that, because if you remember that stuff, it is you'll see a lot of commonalities whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting in a tree watching deer, and I have definitely use that to my advantage, just going out and watching and enjoying, watching the deer, not even on property to hunt, just watching deer where there's a high deer density and you can see them, noticing that, okay, all the deer are coming out this way. Do I necessarily want to be right there? Or whenever that deer comes, you'll see one of them start feeding one direction. And then as other deer, you see the rest of the deer, they gradually start to feed the same direction. So maybe I can be a lot safer, create the deer are going to be a lot more settled down if I just let them feed and
Mm-hmm.
work that direction versus getting super aggressive and jumping in right, trying to catch them right coming out.
Right.
So really paying attention to that can make a difference of whether you're going to be able to, watch them and let them get, because a lot of times, they when they first come into the field, they're on edge. You'll see a doe just kind of raising up on edge,
Yeah.
and then finally get settled in, and then once she gets settled in, you'll see other deer start to come out, and it's almost like she's a scout, and
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm a firm believer that they do have a lot of common patterns based upon how the wind's blowing and so on and so forth, and they will repeat that pattern if they're undisturbed. And if you can just don't get aggressive until you have to, just kind of inch in on them. And I
Yep.
know too, it can be tough because time. People have lives,
Mm-hmm.
they have, and everybody wants to be out there as much, but sometimes you just can't because you got little ones, you got baseball games or soccer games, and so goes right back to the decoys. Who wants to try to risk blowing their hunt? And there's a lot of things that I've done that people will laugh and say, "I can't believe that you got away with that." And part of it is because from watching deer, literally like
Yeah.
a doe. When I've had a decoy out there, I've had does blow at it. I've had does sit there and stomp. You get in that chest match where she's stomping. But if she blows 3 or 4 times, deer communicate with one another, and that's just one way they communicate. Some say that every single time they blow, it's like a, hey, get away from here, or caution, caution. Well, a lot of times they're not. I've seen deer sit there and blow at
Mhm.
each other in the field. So
Mhm.
in situations like that, I've had deer sit there and blow, and I'm like, well, crap, I'll blow back at her.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if anything, they're like, whoa, it catches them off guard. And I'm not saying go blow at every deer if they do. What I'm saying is if you have that one that's out there, what's it going to hurt to try it? If you're worried about her running off, blow at her. Blow at her again,
Mhm.
because I've had it several times to where they just stop and look, and then they just kind of go back to feeding. And then
Yep.
just like when they first enter the field, once they get comfortable, they settle back down.
Yep. I like that, man. I that's all such good stuff, and I kind of we'll stay in the same world of talking this, and Larry, something came to my mind like while you were going through all that stuff, and that is, man, like I said, I really do respect you, and I really look up to you in what you're doing. Who's been a big influence on you, like doing the things that you've been doing? Just because, man, like as a young middle 30s, I'm 36 years old. I have two kids. I have the new baby, and I've been with my we've been married now, will be 12 years. I hope, I think it's 12 going on this summer. There's her and I had this conversation where when I teach health, I'm teaching the kids, like, it's all about experiences, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, they're just another notches on your belt. And as you just go through it, someone like yourself that's been through a lot of success and tough times, I'm sure, as well. Who's someone that you looked up to that's helped you become like the person that you are in and out of the hunting world?
Man, I have to say, my dad, my granddad. I mean, I've been my whole side of that family. I mean, they country is cornbread, and we hunting, raising blue tick hounds, going out running coon hounds, and just being involved in that. I mean, it didn't matter if it had four legs and a heartbeat. I was interested in trying to learn about it and see whether it was a coon, a raccoon, or it didn't matter when I was growing up. So just grown to just love all of it, nature, and respect everything that it had to offer was vitally important. And they kind of instilled that to me. And then, as I was getting older, evolving into, archery and just, where I was doing things more on my own, you
Hmm.
know, I got, just meeting a lot of people and just not being afraid to go out and try to do it,
Hmm.
so my dad, my grandpa were big influences on it. All the way up to when I got more into the industry, starting out. I started out, with a show called Heartland Bowhunter, and me and another guy started that show, and it's obviously still going, still good buddies with all them. My stepbrother's Ty Easley, he's on that show still, and still talk to those guys a lot. But we, uh, you know, being able to document it behind the lens brought a whole nother level of it to us, because
Hmm.
now I could go back and watch it, and
Yeah.
I could see, man, and stuff that you just don't capture in the moment, but when you go back and watch, it's plain as day.
Yeah.
And so being able to go back and watch some of those with my stepbrother and starting that show was vitally to really, it just, my passion getting even stronger and stronger. So um, through that, we built a tree arm for production with Heartland Bowhunter years ago, and we went to our first ATA show, and I'll never forget. We had a 10 by 10 booth, and I mean, I was standing on that concrete floor. My legs looked like tree trunks, and I'm just talking to people. Well, Philip Vanderpool and the HS guys and the Primos guys, they came over, was talking, and they started. They were interested in our tree arms, and just as we start to do, started talking to them more and more, it was just like, man, I was just soaking it all in and learning as much as I could, and trying new things, and going out there and realizing that, man, really, you just got to, all you have to, go out and communicate. If you have a question, ask it. That's why I tell
Hmm.
everybody, if they do have a question, I feel like I can help, send me a message on social media, send Respect to Game TV a message or whatever. I ain't afraid to answer anything. If I can help somebody, I'm going to let them know, what I think is,
Hmm.
hey, this is what's worked for me. Uh, at the end of the day, though, we're going after wild animals, so
Yeah,
sometimes there's got to be a little luck involved too, you know.
exactly. No, I love that message just because it's it's warm-hearted knowing like the hard work that you put in throughout these years. And obviously with respect to game now, it's you and a couple buddies and along those lines doing it, and you have 10 seasons. How long have you been doing that with respect to game?
We're actually going to be filming this spring, starting this spring, our 14th season.
Wow.
The season that's airing now, season 13. So we're we've gotten a lot better. Kind of, it's taken us a little bit to get in the groove as far as keeping up with the times and all the ways of getting content shot and out there. But our team's great. Ryan and Paul, I mean, they're great editors, great producers, and got a great eye behind the lens, and that's as well. And they're just as passionate about it
Yeah.
as I am, and everybody else, which makes it even better because I'm the first guy there was like, man, you're like a little girl when even, when we shoot something, and
Mhm.
I'm like, I'll jump up, pick them up, because it generally, I mean, it
That's the
just,
beauty of it.
yeah, exactly. I love to be there. One of my favorite pictures is that we've ever taken in the show was we were actually all on a hunt together in Nebraska, and we were spot stalking mule deer hunt, and the sandhills. And Paul was hunting, and we were just kind of going out trying to glass. We seen a good, nice whitetail out in the prairie by itself. So, and we put together a plan and got up there, spot and stalked it, and Paul was able to get a shot off. But there's a picture that they have, you'll probably see on our page, where we're all just kind of around that deer high fiving.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I'm like, man, that's to me, that's what it's all about.
You
So,
could probably
and that's
feel
what I said.
smell
I say it
you
myself too.
yeah, you could feel, smell, and just still put yourself in that moment probably when you look at that photo.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And it was just, to me, it was just so awesome. Number one, to do it that way, and two, to do it with buddies that you work with is awesome. And I I love it all. Like I said, even the times where it's not.
Yep.
People say, I love to spot and stalk. And I always tell them, I was like, well, people only call it spot and stalk when it works. I said, you're spotting and scooping majority of the time.
Yeah.
You're spotting and scooping majority of the time. It's
Exactly.
always spot when it works.
Yep, exactly.
So,
So, man, so from starting that with Heartland Bowhunter and doing along those, and then doing all the different things that you do for respect to game, and obviously for the outdoor group, man, we've come a long way, right? As far as technology with cameras and just social media, obviously, man, I do, and I had a conversation with somebody. It's all about perspective too, the way you look at it. But I'm sure just because of how much fun the last 4.5 years since I've started doing this, how much more fun I've had with certain pieces of equipment that, whether it be certain cameras and lenses, how much more fun I've had growing and developing and getting in on this just because I'm self-taught. I had zero background with cameras and anything along those lines, especially from college. I was just a, you know, typical baseball player who I wanted to be a phys ed teacher and coach, right? And do along those lines. I had nothing as far as let me pick up a camera. I always enjoyed great movies and respected all that type of stuff. So I kind of had a creative mind, I
mhm.
guess you could kind of say. I just needed to have that piece of equipment, and it's evolved. Man, for you, how much more fun is it now compared to when you were just starting out?
We had the whole thing too with me is starting off. It was one of those things where watching other hunts and watching ourselves hunt, I was like, just being able to tell a story without saying a word,
Mhm.
letting
Mhm.
people perceive that hunt the way that they wanted to perceive it, not, hey, this is how I want you to see it.
Right.
And I think that starting Heartland Bowhunter, they do a phenomenal job of it. And we've kind of gravitated that route too. It's just us going out there hunting because everybody, content is subjective. It really
Mhm.
is. Some people may like this style, some people may like that style. I, I truly do like it all if it comes to it. If that's what, whether it be not just based on what equipment, but just going after and trying to capture it and because even us having a television show, I mean, there's some hunts that are going to unfold better than others,
Mhm.
and we still have to tell that story. And it's so in order to do that, you got to have the camera running, and versus me coming on there and showing a hunt, and then me coming back and maybe doing a what we call spines, where it's like I'm telling you kind of what you're about ready to watch, versus with just letting you watch it,
Mhm.
interpret it yourself. or in a lot of cases, they tell you what you just watched, and instead of moving on. And I'm not knocking that style or that form at all because it works a
Mhm.
lot. We just want to bring something a little bit different to the table, and not that it's different, but I feel like it gives us it gives us the means to be creative.
Right.
A lot more creative to show some of those shots and some of what we're seeing out there. Because having a show and being able to go some of the places we go, you get to I appreciate and all of those great experiences and being able to see a buck breed a doe or a
Mhm.
bobcat grab a squirrel and chasing a squirrel around stuff. That's to me that made my whole hunt. I may not have seen a deer the whole that whole set, but just being able to see that. I mean I'll come back and I'll tell everybody at camp about it until they're tired of hearing about it. But just because I generally get pumped up about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I love that. Just again, I think we've made some pretty cool, and like you, I love that you said it's all how about too how you interpret it, right?
Mhm.
How you digest it, and you like what you like, and the other aspect that I've over the last like 2 years, what I've really have grown to love and respect is really just the people that put in the time to really put something forward, even if it's not my cup of tea, even if it's something that I may, it may not be my favorite way to consume that, but man, there's a lot of effort that goes in behind the scenes to make that possible, and that's the other aspect that it's just I respect the heck out of it, and no matter what you're doing, I give you a thumbs up, or not just you, Larry, but just anybody out there that's listening that has made something. It's a lot of time and effort that goes into it, and I love to what you said. Tell a story without actually telling the story. Those Some of those are the most powerful videos digesting of some form of content, whether it's hunting or not hunting. Those are some of the most
Mhm.
powerful type of videos out there. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, the other thing too is let's just face it, today's world with social media, you also open up to a lot of negativity and stuff like that. You
Hmm.
got to keep that to yourself. Be positive about it. I mean, those
Hmm.
positive experiences. If you see someone else have that positive experience, shoot, comment on, tell them that was awesome because it truly was.
Hmm.
And a lot of people I see kind of fearing with the social media of whether they want to engage in something or ask a question. Well, send a DM or do whatever because we're not those guys at all. And
Hmm.
we have it. In every show they have that negativity and stuff. We just stay away from. It. Keep your chin up, keep going because you're going to be successful. You're going to fail. And when you fail, just get right back up.
Yep.
It's going to just keep after it. It's going to
Yep.
happen. Whether it's your first, you're trying to harvest your first deer with a bow or first turkey with a bow or whatever it may be. I mean, it may be a doe. I'm still going to be jacked up about it. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
because you just accomplished something. You set a goal. You went out and got it.
Yep.
And okay, so now let's do that again.
Yep.
And just keep getting
Exactly.
better and better and better. And that's kind of how I've kind of moved through the industry as well as far as and it's been working out. And I just love to hear stories from other people too because
Hmm.
yeah, I mean we have a show, but I could tell you right now, I mean I try to learn every time I go out there, and if I'm going to listen to someone else's story and I may ask a question to them, well, why did you do that or whatever? Because man, that just seemed a little bit odd. And boom, learn something right there from it. And we're all hunters at heart. The only difference is,
Hmm.
I've got somebody, either filming or or I'm filming somebody, but we're out there. So, but it's, there's no difference. I mean, there's been several deer that if you were in that tree, you would have shot the same deer. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's just
Yep.
it's just a matter of us being able to share the story, do it tactfully, and let you perceive that whole story how you want.
Yep. So the one aspect that I love, just because obviously for the short amount of times that you and I had the pleasure of actually communicating on the phone, whether it be even also too in meetings or anything along those lines on a computer, the one aspect that I love is how much you guys love archery. Just
Hmm.
because, man, archery to me is with as a young kid, the first bow I got, man, I could not tell you how excited I was to finally get my first quote unquote real bow as a young boy when I was going into the archery shop with my dad. And when I got my first one, and it always was a piece of me. And I love archery. There's just something I can't just, I can't say it enough. And it's one thing that it's so cool to see that you guys are so passionate about it. And I love it, and I watched that video of your turkey hunt. It was in Texas. Was it last year with
Mm-hmm.
the double kill? Dude, that
Mm-hmm.
was so freaking cool to see that. And I like that. So when you look back at some of these awesome hunts, and like you said, you're about to be filming season 14, man, what are some of those when you look at it? If I sit there and say, what is your most memorable hunt? What comes to your mind?
Probably, I'm gonna say I remember all of them. To be honest with you, but probably one of my favorite and most memorable was Argentina red stag, uh,
Okay.
and it was on a just on a trip on a when we had the opportunity to go. Went down there. I think more of it was just because it was a you're free range stag hunting. You're getting after it and you're trying to find them and go get them. But more importantly, it was just seeing a different culture
Mm-hmm.
too. Just the people and how much they appreciated their their land.
Mm-hmm.
They were conservationists. They everything that they that we ate when we were down there was all organic. It was just seeing that different culture and going out and to experience and navigate their land, and the way it just made me want to go out there and because they were generally wanting to try to get on a stag and stuff, and it wasn't like it wasn't an easy hunt. I mean,
Right.
I blew a lot of stocks, like I said, we spot spooked a lot.
Yep. Yep.
and and then finally got one to come together. But it was just a really cool hunt, just because, like I said, just to experience the people and that culture along with it. But outside of here is probably obviously my first bow elk or
Mm-hmm.
bow elk was uh, ways in my mind, and really I took a liking to calling elk and figuring them out as well. And then you never forget your first bow kill. It's
Mm-hmm.
you know it's yeah, whether it's a doe or mine would just happen to be like a little bitty old 5 point like this, but I still have his rack in the in the garage, and I'm I remember like it was yesterday.
That's awesome. What's a hunt maybe that you do every year that you just always look forward to doing, or that you would like to get back to every year?
Honestly, hunting more at home. Uh, I put a lot of work into some of the properties that we do at home, and making the time to spend it here with even whether it's you know hunting myself or taking someone else or whatever on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing other people be successful, and sometimes schedules don't allow for that. And so if there's one thing I think being able to hunt with buddies and family and taking somebody hunting, I think is, I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. I just, like I said, I love to be there and experience that with somebody. That's the other great thing about the show, is because well,
Mm-hmm.
we got a camera guy or whatever. I mean, we've like literally, and Ryan, he's the worst because he's like, no, I'm going to film you all. I'm going to film you. So there's been times like we'll go down to my farm and I'll say, hey, let's just meet down there at the farm. Just bring your bow and I'll do that, and I'll leave my bow at home. And I'll be like, well, you got to hunt now.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
uh, and so I just love the experience
Yeah, I like that. What's the plans for this spring?
of it all.
What about this spring?
This
Sorry.
spring, so we're working, probably going down to Texas. We've got Kansas, and then we're probably going to just make a run through the Midwest, and then I think we end off in May in Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So
Well,
we'll be
there
spread
you
out.
go.
So Paul will be hunting. Yeah, Paul will be hunting in Oklahoma. We'll have Texas. We have Kansas, which Kansas just went to a draw, so I was fortunate enough to draw a tag there, and then home state of Missouri, um, Ohio, Kansas, or Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Nice. 2 states I'll be hitting up: Ohio and obviously my home state in Pennsylvania. So that'll be awesome.
Yep.
That'll be exciting. It's so, it's wonderful for someone like you that has the luxury of being able to go film and do hunt along the lines of that, because you could go early season to some of these states, go enjoy those times, and then 6.5 weeks later, turkey season is just kicking off here in the state of Pennsylvania by the time we're recording this. So, man, it's wild to think of how vastly different some of these seasons are. Obviously, Florida's starting right now along those lines, but here in Pennsylvania, we don't start for another 6.5 weeks. Like, that's just crazy and wild. And what you're able to experience as a turkey hunter, if you have the chance to go out and travel a lot.
Yeah, because last year when that hunt you're referring to in Texas, I literally I was at the same place. I mean, literally, I think 4 weeks prior to that, like I'd shot a buck down there. And then 4 weeks I was back down there, I was turkey hunting. I was like,
Yep.
man, and literally, I mean, you hear people say, it felt like deer season just ended. Well, last year, it really did.
It really did.
Yeah, it really did. So it was kind of odd, but like I said, it is good. Now I will say, hunting the Merriams and stuff early, that can be rough, just because they've usually flocked up, and I like to wait a little bit. Me personally, just because let them get split up. Because I've had some pretty tough hunts on turkeys, because you can call till you're
All day.
out of breath, and all they're doing is just following the leader. You pretty much have to sit up and try to deer hunt them and hope they walk by.
Yep. What so we're just talking about how much archery means to us and how much we love it. What's your current bow setup that you'll be taking on these spring
Bow
turkey
set
hunts?
up. I'm going to be shooting the Ethos. I've got it in midnight copper, and yeah, I've got a CBE Trek 2V on it, and I'm just going to set it up. I actually took a turn out of it just to lower the poundage just a little bit, and yeah, so I'm going to probably shoot that all spring as well. And I'm one of those guys too. I want to, once I get comfortable with that setup, I mean, I want to be able to go hunt anything with it, and so it's but that's going to be my rig this spring is that Ethos, and it treated me
Yeah.
well this fall, so I'm hoping it's going to do the same this spring.
How much, because I know you shot the Era, and that was my main whitetail rig this past year. And that was my first carbon bow. That was my first carbon. And I'll tell you what, Larry, that bow, it brought me so much luck. Like we were just saying, right? Deer hunting is all about, learning and growing and certain skill sets, but then a little bit of luck. And I had a lot of luck with 5 deer in like 3.5 weeks here in the state of PA. And I'm just like, this freaking
Yep.
Era. Every time I shot, it was like, my gosh, here we go. First one with the Era. 6 days later, I'm like, here we go. This Era is bringing me luck. And then literally the next week, I'm like, holy hell. And then the next week, there's a buck and a doe. It was awesome, man. I thought it was a very successful first year for
100%.
Elite with the Era.
I mean, the Era
I would
just
assume you would
an
agree with
awesome
that.
all around rig. And I was not really partial to a carbon bow. Not that I had a ton of experience with a carbon bow, but I figured I like a bow that has a little weight on it, just because my pin likes to float a lot. And I figured, so I'll put a little bit of weight on it to get that pin to settle down. But that bow, it was a carbon bow that held so good, like aluminum bow. And once you got it tricked out, it was like, man, this thing is a shooter. And so I really, 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 and I still have my Airs out there, and trust me, I could pick it up right now and not think twice about it. This Ethos is it is a really, really efficient, and just, it's one of those bows that kind of corrects like my mistakes. I can like break off a bad shot and be like, man, that felt horrible. Like we all do. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people won't admit it, but yeah, it's like, man, that felt horrible. It doesn't feel like it's close. But then when you
Yep.
walk down there, it's like your arrow's right in the dot. It's like, how'd that happen? It's just that bow, to me. So I've been gravitating towards it. And
Yep.
one thing I will address while we're on here is I get a lot of questions about the Ethos and the Cairo. So to bring up the Cairo, that bow was built for a lot of bow hunters. One of the most common draw lengths, all the way from that 26 to 28.5-inch guy. Yeah. So that bow
Right here
is the same bow as an Ethos, just has a different engine. The cams are different. It has a little bit smaller cam on there, but the reason for that, because at those draw lengths I just mentioned, 28.5-inch guy, and you're thinking, hey, Ethos, Kairos, you really probably should look at the Cairo. The reason why is it's going to be really, really efficient, and you're probably going to just perform a little bit better for you, in my opinion, because I know with the ethos, you've got to adjust the mod, and when you do, some of the strings leaving the cam early. You're not getting as much rotation or more rotation without the string on the cam. And with the Cairo, you're going to have more string on there, so therefore more efficiency and more energy is leaving through your arrow.
Yeah, I like that. That's all really good information. That's really why I leaned towards the Kairos bow this year, just because of my draw length, because I could kind of fluctuate between a 27.5 to 28. And I was like, well, regardless where I'm going to be with that string angle, that will be the bow that will be most efficient for myself. And it's funny you brought about, when you have that one bad shot. So today I shot a bunch of arrows, and I was starting to call some shots. I was calling top, bottom, and calling a 14 and all that stuff. And my last arrow was a 14. I was like, okay, we got to make this one count. This is it. And as I'm drawing, I'm pulling, I had a surprise shot.
Yeah,
like
because
I did it
I call it
myself.
Bind. A lot of times you'll be sitting there in that family like that.
I put up my binos. I'm like, when I looked and I saw my fletching, I'm like, that looks still though pretty good. I'm around it. And like you said, it was actually just boom, dead center in that 14. I was like, well, yeah, you trust your pin float, right? That's the one aspect of it,
so that's
right? That's the aspect of the training. Yeah. Exactly. But I think that era, going back to that era though, if you are looking for like the one all be all type of hunting rig, and if you want something light in the hand, if you're depending on where you're hiking, and like even Larry said, you could even deck it out with certain way to get it balanced the way that you want to balance. And I understand the purpose of having a light bow is to keep it light. But like for me, for whitetail, I did, right? So I ran it last year during like just local 3D type stuff, and I had a back bar on it. But once hunting season rolled around, I took that off. I was like, let me be light as possible. Let me be efficient. And like you said, I actually took it out the other day just to shoot it, just to see. I'm like, man, I haven't shot this since I got the Kairos bow. So I'm like, let me just see. Boom, it's still on. It's still right there. I checked the timing and everything like that. And that is a great bow. As somebody asked me, I was like, I will never get rid of that era bow until 4 or 5 years from now, when Elite makes the next greatest one. So that will be it for me. Larry, man, I greatly appreciate you taking this time out to speak with me tonight. And man, just like you said, I could honestly say Larry's not lying when he says just to message him, when he says just to, if you have a question about anything along those lines, because he's been extremely helpful for myself. We're excited to work together on a little project that hopefully we'll be able to announce here pretty soon. And I have some things lined up that I'm really thrilled about. It really means a lot to me personally. And to have someone like Larry kind of to be a huge, gigantic influence behind it, I can't thank him more enough. And thank you everybody for tuning in this week. Definitely go check out Respect the Game. Check out what Larry's doing. Wonderful individual. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and Antler Up.